From Glitch HQ on Riverside Avenue in exhausted multiplicative Minneapolis, this is Nice Games Club, the show where nice game devs talk gaming and game development.
I'm Martha McGarry, and I make nice games.
I'm Stephen McGregor, and I make nice games.
And I'm Arthur Croy, I too make nice games. For this roundtable episode, our topics are GlitchCon 2017 debriefing, we're going to hear Steven's primer on game design, and we're going to talk about multitasking. And so, if everyone is ready, let's start. Did that bit work, guys?
Yeah,
I think that was good.
Just humoring me.
I thought it was clever.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, it's so good to be back here.
Yeah. It's fun doing the live show.
Yeah. So for our listeners, because they won't hear this episode for a little while.
Oh, yeah.
But
Calendar math.
I know. We're just a couple days out from recording our live show at GlitchCon 2017, which was a blast.
Oh, yeah. Good
right?
times.
It was so cool.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it when in the first topic.
That's right. Housekeeping before we get into the topics. We're trying to be a little active on Reddit. So there's a huge game dev community on Reddit, r/gamedev. And we've started to post our show notes in that subreddit.
Yeah.
And we've got some pretty good response. It's also helped us grow our listenership. And so what we want to do is we want to ourselves be a little more active there as well. And we want you, the listeners, though either you came to us through Reddit or you've been with us all along, we want you to go to r/gamedev, find our threads, and that's where you can talk about our episodes.
Yeah.
Rather than build our own sort of forum system or whatever, we figure let's go there because it's sort of built already and there's other people to talk with. And it's a way to get feedback because we're trying to find the best way to get feedback. Because Stephen, you beg everybody every week.
Yeah, I did it at the live show. Not enough yet. Working on it.
And maybe that's just a process of us finding the right way to hear from you and what's easy for you, how easy it is for you to be in touch.
Reddit is the way to do that.
We're going to give it a shot. So.
Yeah. And also it'd be cool to just be able to communicate between one another, build up our own community. Yeah,
for sure. Because I think it's probably easier for people to have a conversation than it is to engage an official feedback set. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like maybe we're being too demanding of people. The truth is people want to share their own knowledge and opinions. And let's give them at least some context for that if they are inspired by something we talk about.
Yeah. Yes. So GlitchCon.
Uh-huh.
I think it happened recently, right?
Oh man, I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was a really good time. What should we talk about first? Some of the sessions? Or how did our sessions go?
Oh, yes. Yeah. You're going to hear a bit about my session in the next topic because I'm going to give you all a primer on it. But my session went really well. It was really popular. It was earlier. It was the first one of the sessions. So it was kind of interesting, but it was
right. It set a standard by which we all failed to live up to.
Yeah,
the rest of the speakers.
Well, I mean, I sort of, maybe kind of. No. I think people started tapering out later on in the day, but there was a ton of people and they all seemed to learn a lot. For those who weren't at GlitchCon, who don't know, I did the game design workshop, and it was basically just an excuse for people to make paper prototypes for an hour. And they used that excuse well. They lot of awesome paper prototypes that were made.
Yeah,
it was really cool. It was really cool. I was really impressed.
Yeah, we were Martha and I were both there. I was helping you out, and Martha, you had family there, so you participated.
Yeah, it was fun. Me and my mom and my friend Felix, or our friend Felix, I guess. Yes. Hi, Felix. And who else was in our group?
Your boyfriend was it?
Dylan, yeah. Yes. He's just always there. So, and Dylan, and we made this awesome. Should I talk about this now or in your segment?
We can go for it.
Let's talk about it now. Yeah.
Okay. So we made up a game about the fear of death, and it was like a chess game, but chess-esque game where you had a board like a chessboard, and you're trying to beat death at chess. And so one player played death and the other player played a person, and death made a bet on which things on the board you could collect, and the person had to guess which things were important and also get to the end of the board, and then a combination of that would get points. And it was really fun.
Felix would tell me that he kind of wanted to start or continue on with it.
Yeah. I would be totally down.
Yeah. I think the most amazing thing about the game design workshop is that Martha, you, someone who on this show has reported your dislike for paper prototypes. Like if everyone can see the big smile on Martha's face right now, like that's the success that Stephen you had.
You convinced me.
It worked. Yes.
Having the constraint, like it made so much sense. I think why it never made sense to me before is because like at the GDC game design workshop, we had to like the constraint on the topics we could pick was so small, but the stuff we could do was bigger.
Yeah.
And so it was like, I don't really like like we have to make a board game based on a game that's already made.
Yeah.
And that seems backwards. Like this felt good because it was like you make an idea and then make the prototype for the idea.
Right.
Not have the idea and then, yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. You're kind of like reinventing the wheel. Except you're like reinventing the spokes on the wheel.
Yeah.
Instead of the wheel itself with the GDC one. Yeah, but you guys had sessions. How did they go?
Well, Martha, you had your Git workshop.
Yeah.
And I missed it because I was doing my own thing.
I know. And I missed yours.
I heard really good things.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was good. I did show up at the end.
Yeah.
Like, I only this because you ended early because everybody was picking up on it so fast.
I
right?
know. I had estimated first I estimated too much. Like I had like people making Unity projects and all of these like crazy complicated things. And I was like, no, I got to scale it way back. And it turns out I scaled it way like almost too far back because people got through stuff in an hour and I had an hour and 45 minutes. And so, I was so impressed by everyone because it was like, I'd be like, so any questions? They're like, oh, we have it done already. I was like, oh, okay.
This is Git we're talking about.
Yeah.
Like that's incredible.
I know. That's how good this workshop was. I only was there for like 15 minutes. I was like, oh man, Git is so simple. And I was doing it in the beginning. It was great.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a wrinkle that you had was because of the venue, there wasn't internet for attendees.
Yeah.
So you had to come up with another solution.
Yeah, so I actually made it like way better because I taught people how to make remote repositories on flash drives. Which is a thing you can do, everybody. But I think that made it interesting even to people who know how to use Git already, because not many people know you can do it offline. To have a remote offline, you can do it on your own computer. But yeah. So I think it turned out to be a boon to not have internet.
Yeah. And people were like, they were comfortable with the command line. Like, did anybody come in with a skeptical attitude or?
Well, there were some people who came in with, I'm not going to understand this, but I'm just going to sit and listen. And by the end, like, props to Ellen. She like totally got everything that was going on.
Nice.
And yeah, it was so awesome seeing her like, being like, oh my God, this is so cool. Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Also, props to Adia for being the unofficial co-speaker.
Sure. She TA'd for you?
Yeah.
Nice. I love it.
I'd be like, someone asked me a question and I'd be like, I'm like 50% sure of the answer to this. Adia, what do you think? So yeah, thanks for helping me out.
Oh, that's nice. Well, that was going on. I had my session, which was called Tell Me Something I Don't Know Again. It was the second time I've done it at GlitchCon.
I was also at this one.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I won Steven. I'm really excited about that.
I mean, that's not true. I went to both of you guys's.
Okay, I'm just saying.
Can't I love you both equally?
Yeah. You give me this one, Steven. Okay. So it was a round table of all the game devs in the audience, and we kind of went through a little bit of a timeline of like from how do you get your ideas to how do you sell them to how do you talk about them. And I had everybody give examples of successes and failures, like at any scale. And I think that got people sort of in the mood to talk about their like what they faced and why. Yeah. And I think it was a great group, which was really great. And everyone kind of had a good open attitude. People started talking to each other, like volunteering new information. I don't know, Stephen, like I have a very rosy view because I was very pleased with it, but also a couple people did come up after me and tell me how much they enjoyed it. So I felt, so warm from those reactions. But you were there. Like,
yeah, I thought it went really well. I was actually, there was a couple of people who were there who approached me afterwards too. asking me questions about. I can't remember their names right now, but they asked remember that one dude who asked a whole bunch of questions to people?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yes. That one guy, you guys clearly know who I'm talking about, right? Because you were all there. Yeah. But it was really cool because there were a lot of people with different experiences. Will Tice was there.
Yeah.
Our pal. He gave some interesting insight, and I was there, and I blurted out random things sometimes.
Well, and I called on you a couple times, just because you were within a view, and I knew you could help me out.
Yeah, and Lane was there too. It was fun. It was a good experience because you were right when you were going through the talk. What the thing you said was keep learning and keep teaching.
Yeah, right.
That I really like that statement because it's important. Things that other people probably don't know. And it's important to be conscious of it and try to inform others when you can.
Yeah. It was meant to be a round table. People share with each other, but I did have two pieces of information that I felt I was qualified to impart. And I have these little aphorisms. And one of them was the one you just said, keep learning, but also keep teaching. That's really important.
Yeah.
Because otherwise there's no point in learning. And then the other one was the sort of two sides of this coin that you know more than you think you do, but you also will never know as much as you want to. Right. And that's something you should always think about when you're learning things, is that you're never going to be the expert, even if you're the best in the world. You're never going to know it all. And so if you don't realize that, if you don't have that self-awareness, then you will get frustrated with every new piece of information you learn because it doesn't unlock the, you don't reach the mountaintop.
Yeah.
Right? But the first part of that, if you actually do know more than you think you do, and you shouldn't take the fact that you don't know everything as an excuse to stop you from starting on something. You're going to make mistakes, and you're going to, when you know more next year, you would have done it better, but you'll have a year of experience in the meantime. So I hope that got through to people.
I think it did.
Good.
I feel like
that's good to hear.
I'm sad I missed it.
Well, maybe next year. We'll see what the feedback forums say, because this year at GlitchCon, they invited everybody to give feedback to the presenters, and I'm really anxious to hear like actual people's comments, like what they liked or what didn't work about it. You know.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, yeah, that'll be very interesting. Did they send it to us?
I think that's the idea.
I hope so.
I hope we don't just get like anonymously ranked.
Yeah.
But I think it's modeled off of other things like how GDC does it. You hear the speakers will like months later on Twitter will say, I got my feedback forms and everybody loved it or hated it.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
So we also did a live show.
Yeah.
That's true.
How did that go, guys?
It went really well, I think. Thank you so much to the Saltzmans for being our interviewees.
Yes, Rebecca and Adam.
They were like, we were very much like, thank you for like agreeing to stay. And they're like, we're loving this. Like I'm so glad that they enjoyed it.
Yeah. They took it away and they just ran with it and it went really well.
Yeah. They took a lot of stress off of us to perform on stage.
Yeah.
That's true.
And just like, nuggets of wisdom all through it. So if you haven't already, go back and listen to that show. It's already published. It's a really good one. We're very proud of it. Yeah. What else did we do at GlitchCon?
Well, you guys had your games at GlitchCon. How did showing them off go?
It was a thing that existed, and I wasn't really there to acknowledge it. It was really good, I should say first, because I was a little worried going into this to this minicade because in past minicades they'd always been like a separate thing, and it'd be for like 4 hours or something, and people who were running the games would be there,
or to be a scheduled event.
Yes, scheduled event. Yeah, and like people would be there and would be willing to take in feedback or help with questions, or like if a game broke, they could just reset it or whatever. Mm-hmm. This year it was different.
If a game broke, how cute.
Maybe other people are better about bugs than I am.
Yeah.
But this year was different. They had it up the whole GlitchCon. And so especially on Saturday, we were busy doing the live show and our own talks that I wasn't available to really be at Minicade. But from what I heard, people enjoyed Fingens very much. And even when I had like a little bit of downtime, I was able to go in there and play Fingens a little bit in other games.
Yeah. On Saturday night, like as things were clearing out, there was a group of 4 people, like just like you couldn't tear them away. From it.
They were like they were playing it for like 2 hours or so.
Yeah,
a little longer. Yeah,
that's so cool.
It got pretty intense. Mm-hmm. They broke the game a few times, which is also good. Not for previewing it, but good for me.
And I was watching you when you were there, like resist the urge to take detailed playtest notes because it wasn't a playtest.
Yeah,
it was. was awesome.
Yeah. You know, I'm always tempted.
Yeah.
But it went really well, and I was very surprised about it because like it really felt like a good hangout spot.
Yes.
That I didn't expect from it because Minicade was different because of the venue. There weren't really seats for people. You had to sit on the floor, and some people had like not benches, but they had stools and things, so people could sit down on not the floor. But most people had, you know, just pillows and things, and it wasn't super comfortable, at least for me. But it went a lot better than I expected.
Yeah. I think we raised concerns about that going in. That like the idea is to have this like living room environment, so everything's low to the ground, and people are sort of. But there wasn't enough sort of like pillows or beanbag or anything like that, and so each of the Minicade participants had to sort of come up with their own solution. Yeah, and that was kind of like sort of last minute for a lot of us. And I was very happy with what I came up with, and some of the people had other different options. But I actually started polling people around like. Because I don't want to sit on the floor either. And so we're like, I don't really want to sit on the floor either, but I don't mind it. So I don't think it, I was worried, but I don't think anybody walked away upset about it the way we were worried the players might.
All right.
But I think for next year, we might want to push a little harder because but I did like that everything was low. Like like there wasn't, it made the ceilings feel taller and it made it feel like more like hangout space.
Yeah, it felt so chill. Like you went in there to relax.
So like that core idea of it was bumpy, but it paid off sort of overall. I was very happy.
I suppose it did. The low setting make it feel a little better.
And I might be a little bit more positive on it than you because I came up with this genius seating solution for my game, which I had a session that went well. The show was great. People really liked my game. But the thing that I'm most proud of at Minicade was the seating solution. So I Friday night before when we were setting everything up,
we're gonna put this in the notes.
Yeah,
this picture.
Yes, we should. You have to see this, folks. I was trying to come up with like how are people going to actually play the game, and I didn't want them sitting on the floor. I didn't I didn't want to, I wanted to figure out something. Yeah. So I'm like, I'm just going to go and buy some beanbag chairs. I don't care how much it costs. I'll regret it next week. And when I have nowhere to put them, and I spent money on beanbag chairs. So I asked Alex, who put on the show, I'm like, Alex, where can you get beanbag chairs? And he's like, Walmart, probably. I'm like, oh yeah. And so I went there and I could spend $30 on a giant crappy beanbag chair. I had to get 4 of them. And I was so close to doing it, you guys. I was like, I don't care. I don't want people to sit on the floor. Yeah. And I'm just wandering around and I see those, at a department store, you get the big rubber balls, right? Mm-hmm. That are basically they're giant basketballs. They're pre-inflated and they come in this like little cage in the toy aisle, right? Yep. With the rubber band things around it, so you can just grab them. And they're like $2. And I saw those and they were like the right color for my game. And I'm like, maybe you can sit on those. And no, you can't sit on those. And so I'm like, that's a silly idea. So I'm keeping walking through and I see, there's these little bins. They're like sort of like garden trays. And I was like, oh, that's great. I can flip those upside down and put a pillow on it. And it's very low and it's seating. It's fine. I'll do that. So I grabbed one of those and then I looked around to see if I can find some sort of pillow to go with it. And then I walked by the rubber balls again. And like a moment of a desperate inspiration, I flipped the bin upside down, or right side up, in fact, and then put the ball in it. And it was just the perfect seat. Yeah. Like listeners at home, you may not appreciate how like excited I am about this idea or how that has anything to do with game dev.
I think they can hear it in your voice.
But it's one of my life's achievements, this thing.
I didn't realize that you didn't buy that as a set. Yeah. Like those looked like someone would have sold those together as a thing. Yeah. I didn't even realize there were 2 different pieces.
The perfect $6 chair. And now I have nowhere to put them, but I can just get rid of them because I can just buy them again next time I need them because they're really cheap. Yep. We'll put the picture in there and so you can appreciate how excited I am.
Marvel at it.
Yeah. Also, people like my game, I guess. Like,
there was that. Yeah.
But just like yours, people who got into it really got into it, and I think that's a good sign. You want a lot of people to play for 5 minutes. That's what you want. Mm-hmm. But what you always end up getting, or at least, if your game is any good, you end up getting some people who love it and other people who just walk right by it. Yeah. And that feels kind of weird and almost kind of bad, but in truth, that is how an audience is going to respond to it, is you're going to get people who love it and most people will never play it. So I felt pretty good in the end. It was not as much downtime as I was worried about. And people would just stick with it. And which also meant it wasn't breaking as much as I thought it was. So I was very happy.
Oh, also shout outs to Newt 1, Dev and Ari.
Yes.
For winning Minicade. or winning minicade. What was this? Game of the year.
Player's choice.
Player's choice. That's the word.
So just like with the sessions, you could go to a URL and vote for which minicade game you liked. And won it. And they got little tiny trophies at the closing ceremony. It was very cute. And I think Dev and Ari were like not expecting it. So it was very cute. Mm-hmm. And if you want to hear more about their game, they were on our show recently, if you missed it.
Yes.
Talking about their nonviolent game. So check out that old episode to hear more.
Yeah, cool.
Do you want to talk about the venue? Because we kind of touched on it.
Okay.
Steven was not excited about the venue.
I did not like the venue very much. No.
It was the Soap Factory in Minneapolis.
Yes.
It's an artist gallery. There's no permanent installations there usually. It's an ongoing thing. They do a thing at Halloween called the Haunted Basement. Mm-hmm. I mean, it really is an old soap factory. It's this like dingy old building, and they really
splintery
make it,
floors.
Yeah, and they make it work for like it's for the arts community. Like for the people who like don't have the money to put it in like a proper gallery, which is most artists. And so I've always loved that venue because of the service it provides, but it's kind of not a great place to walk around in.
No,
so,
not at all.
I totally appreciate it.
Yeah, there were metal plates all about. Alex had told me that in the what was it, the Mages Hall, which was the room that I had my talk in, the big one.
And mine.
Yes, and Martha's. It had like there was a big gaping hole in there, and it was just covered by a steel plate, but like the plate wasn't bolted down or anything, so anybody could have just pushed the plate over and then just fell down the hole. That's an example of the soap factory.
Yeah,
I did not know that. That makes me retroactively nervous.
Yeah,
yeah. In the VR area, there was one of those metal plates covering up a hole was actually like torn at the corner and bent up. In the VR area,
right,
where you put on the goggles and walk around. So the people who were running that were very mindful of where people stepped, and there wasn't any reported issues, but it was something that they had to really keep an eye on. At my area in Minicade, there was a hole in the floor that I had to fill with stuff underneath the rug. Under mine, just because this was when I thought people were still going to sit on the floor.
Oh yeah,
and so that was one of the reasons I was so desperate to find a solution. Because if you could fallen in this hole.
Right.
You sat on the floor because it was covered by a rug, and so you wouldn't even see it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that place had some charm.
Charm is a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It particularly for me, it was mainly just a safety and accessibility thing. Like it didn't feel. I mean, sure. Aesthetically, I didn't really care for it because it felt like a indie scene thing. Mm-hmm. It felt.
I thought it felt cool. Like the ambiance of it was definitely fit better with like video game, like it felt like you're walking around a video game level more than McNamara did.
Yeah,
That's
it was
an interesting perspective that I had not seen.
It was like one of those levels straight out of Uncharted. Or something.
Yeah.
You have to go around the corner and kill a bunch of dudes. Like,
I didn't consider it that way. I guess when I go to a conference, I'm thinking of it in terms of a conference. So I want to have a nice venue where I can hear people and be able to see them and things like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just I didn't particularly care for the aesthetic.
Yeah.
But also but like I said, mainly safety and accessibility. Like, I mean, we were just talking about how dingy it felt and looked and was. And I mean, and it seemed like to me there were a lot of things that weren't particularly taken into account. Like there were people might bring kids here. They might have children running around, and I didn't want them tripping on them and like getting splinters or much worse than that.
Yeah, I'm definitely of two minds about that because when you talk about it in those terms, like there's no arguing. Like it was not an unsafe place, but like, a building inspector would have to like kind of, cross his eyes to give it a pass. It's on the verge, right? And so for safety and accessibility, that is a huge deal.
Right.
But on the other hand, like it let Glitch like put on a better show because it was a cheaper venue.
Right.
A cheaper show, like the tickets this year were cheaper.
Tickets were cheaper. Which that supports Glitch's ongoing mission. And that's why like spaces like that are important.
Yeah.
But they do have compromises.
Right.
And like when you're talking about like, hearing people, like it's a big open space and they had to move dividers and curtains to make these like rooms for people. But like big shout out to the Glitch staff and volunteers because there was not a problem. Like, all the audiovisual stuff worked. Like everyone like was organized pretty well and like could hear each other. And even when you were in a room where you could hear the other room, it was just a little bit of a din. It kind of made the space feel full rather than distracting. As a presenter, like who had my audience participate, like I couldn't have asked for like a anything better than what we got from that. And that was, there was a risk of that because it was all kind of ad hoc together.
Yeah.
But well done,
for sure. They spent like 2 days setting it up.
Yeah.
Everything ready to go.
Right.
So
it wasn't pre-made the way that, if they told it a hotel or university building that you get a lot of that stuff kind of built in.
Right. Yeah. They built all the rooms and everything. So kudos for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a lot of work, and you could tell that they spent a lot of time on it.
Yes, it felt very handcrafted and lovingly put together.
Right. And when all the people were there, like the sort of the dinginess of the space kind of didn't go away, but it only the charm of it came through, at least in my mind. So I thought like, there's compromises, but it was great. It really was great. But you're right. You're not wrong, Stephen, about the problems. And, that's especially when it comes to accessibility. Yeah. That's important. And this is something we care about. It's something Glitch cares about. Right. And so, but the Soap Factory is getting a big renovation next year. So Glitch is hoping for a relationship with them to go on. And I think it'll get better and better.
Yeah. If they make it a lot safer feeling and more accessible, then all I have to get over is the aesthetics feel.
Right.
And I'm not going to get over that. So I'll just have to accept that.
Yeah.
Just put on the VR goggles, then you'll be fine.
Yeah. So maybe we should talk about the keynotes that were there a little bit.
Sure.
The Saltzmans, they had an interesting keynote talk in the beginning.
Yeah, it was more like an interview sort of, because Ava was on stage too, and just they went back and forth and talked about stuff.
Yeah.
Which made their agreeing to be interviewed by us later that same day all the more appreciated.
Yes. Thank you. Their talk was super interesting. All about running an indie studio and also running a publishing thing and then having their relationship together.
Yeah.
Because they're totally married.
Right. That's how they expressed it. Totally married.
Yeah.
Right?
Then there was a story where they said that Becca was, or they were in an article, and Adam and Becca were in the article, and then somebody commented on there, and they thought that Becca was the mom.
Oh yeah, right.
Or something. Which, so she makes it clear on her Twitter that she's married to Adam.
Right. That was something they mentioned in the keynote, and they sort of touched on a little bit in our show, is the idea that Becca has to face the sort of like assumptions that people make about a woman in gaming.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so interesting because like you meet her and talk to her for 5 seconds, and you can't imagine that she's anything other than like the amazing Becca Saltzman.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to hear that how common it is and how on her guard she has to be Finji's fairly successful these days,
right.
and
she's the CEO,
of that company, and she's also a game designer there, and like, but that she still has to fight against, and she has to prove herself again and again. It's sad and it's telling. But she handled it.
Yeah. And also, Heather Kelly.
Yes.
I overslept and missed the talk. So what did you talk about?
This was the Sunday keynote.
Yes. I think I was in the middle of preparing for Finches a little bit, but it was kind of I saw the tail end of it. And it was pretty interesting. She talked about like what you should do as a game dev to like, I guess to help other people out, sort of like that. And so one part that was kind of interesting, she had everybody like whistling. What's the name of that song? Back the Knife.
Oh, awesome!
Because she was like, I'm not good at whistling, but I'm gonna do it here, and you guys are gonna help me do it. And so we were all whistling Back the Knife with her. It was pretty fun. But like at that point, it was about like you shouldn't make fun of people who are trying to learn things. And
Right.
it goes back to your talk. Like you should be willing to teach people, and you should be willing to acknowledge that you have shortcomings too.
Yeah. And
so,
a team working together can multiply each other's efforts.
Yes. Just as we did when we whistled.
That's awesome. I missed a lot of it too because I set up my game on Sunday, and then I started playing Will's game Atmocopter, and I missed like the first 20 minutes of the keynote. Atmocopter is good, guys.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's fun.
It is really good.
Yeah.
That's funny. Well, that was GlitchCon 2017.
Yeah.
What they got, like
wasn't it like 90 hours worth of content or something
and
like
then you
that?
need to trim it into 44 hours. Not even. It's less than 44. Like
I think it was
36.
39
39.
sessions total. I remember hearing that. I don't know if that was the final number. But
I think it was like 39 hours of content.
it was a good balance.
Yeah, shout out to the selection committee. Y'all did a good job.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. We say as speakers.
People who got in.
It was competitive. I submitted 2
yeah.
talks and a micro talk, and I got just the one in, and I think that's like made sense. Like it was a packed conference. You know?
for sure.
We're lucky to have spoken there.
It's true.
And if you're out there and you've got something you want to say next year at GlitchCon, think about it. Think about joining up.
That's what would make GlitchCon 2018 even better is if your talk is in the lineup. So think about it. You got a whole year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, a Mario Kart Switch thing.
Oh yeah, you were talking before the show about how we were playing Mario Kart.
It was so cute. Mark and Steven were playing on their Switches here in the clubhouse, and then Steven's brother Charles was on the phone, and then Troy was online.
Yeah,
Troy Strand,
friend of the show.
Yeah.
It was pretty fun.
Yeah, it's so easy to start those matches. But there wasn't a lot of that happening at the conference.
Right.
And you were really hoping there would be.
Yeah, I was kind of disappointed.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand it's a conference. You're trying to learn and you're trying to network and things.
Yeah.
But you could also network through your Switches.
Yeah.
Just saying.
But
So Steven,
Yes.
you did this really, really awesome talk on game design.
I mean, that's what I've heard anyway.
It was so great. And I think it'd be great if you gave that same talk for our listeners, maybe.
Hey, okay. I can try. It's going to be kind of difficult. You guys can follow along.
Ooh.
So I'm going to have the slides on the show notes.
that's good.
They're not that exciting slides. They're missing a lot of pictures. I should have put more pictures in there.
You said that, but you had enough.
Yeah,
They were good.
everything
I
was
had
good.
like 4 pictures.
They were fine.
I mean, the pictures were cool, but just not enough of them. But anyways,
The meme to slide ratio is not high enough.
yes. Dang it, ratios. Could do a whole rant on ratios.
So in your workshop, there was 2 parts, right?
Yes.
You had the presentation
Right.
and the workshop itself.
Yes.
So what are we going to hear?
The presentation is the thing you guys are going to hear here on the show. The workshop thing, I'm sorry, you would have had to have been at GlitchCon to do.
You can.
They can do it at home.
You can.
It's a take-home project.
Hey. I mean, if you're constrained and restricted enough, you could do it for the 60 minutes. But I mean, I'm not there to say, hey, stop. So,
Set a timer, everybody.
there you go. So what is game design? You guys know what game design is? I hope you guys know what game design is.
Wait. I didn't know you'd be prompted.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm just kidding. This was the first slide I had, aside from the one that introduced myself. Anyways, I pulled the Wikipedia game design definition, which was game design is the art of applying design and aesthetics to create a game to facilitate interaction between players for entertainment or for educational, exercise, or experimental purposes. Yeah, but nobody knows what that actually means. So, I what it really is just the crap you put in your game to make it, to make it interactive or to make interesting choices for the player. Like jumping or shooting or power-ups, things like those kinds of things. It can be as large as like a specific genre. So like if you want to make a shoot 'em up like Vengeance, or if you wanted to make a platformer, sort of like Metro Nexus or whatever. Those are the kinds of decisions you make when you're doing game design. What you do when you start it, at least how I like to start, is like I have an idea or an emotion or whatever kind of thing I want to start with, and I run with that. So like, for example, if with Vengeance, we're designing with teamwork as the core. So whenever we have a question about what we want to do with our design, we'll go back to that and say, how can we make this emphasize teamwork more? And we try to figure out the best way to do that. I made a character called Gwen. Oh, dang, we should link to Gwen's picture.
Yeah.
Because I love that picture so much. My brothers are working on art for Gwen finally.
Yes.
It's like the best. Like, I don't ever want to play another character in Vengeance because of that picture. But anyways, Gwen is I wanted to make a support tank character for Vengeance because Vengeance is a cooperative shoot 'em up. And so everybody has particular roles. Some players are tanks, some characters are damaging characters and things like that. So I wanted to make a support tank character, and so I designed her kit to be in that. And you can see that in the slide that Gwen is kind of fits that role. Like she has the ability to slow enemies down around her, and she's encouraged to be up close to things like a tank would, and she has the ability to drop a mine, which would tank for her, or would tank for her and her team. those kinds of things. Also, like at the Global Game Jam or a GameCraft here in Minnesota, which is really confusing. We should figure that out. But anyway, they prompt you with a prompt, I guess, like a theme. Last year's theme was waves, and that helps jog ideas in your head so you can come up with a solid idea of a direction you want to go in. It's a lot easier to design when you have an overarching goal or idea versus just doing anything, because restrictions are actually, strangely enough, helpful. Not just helpful, but like freeing in a way, because that's something you don't have to think about. The next slide, the next thing I want to talk about is that no design decision is arbitrary. All things you decide to do in your game make a difference, which is threatening, I know, but like everything has a good or a bad consequence. So like if you decide to make your character red, for example, people might be more aggressive with that character because when people see red, they think more aggressively, things like that. And it could be a small consequence, like they might be a player might be more aggressive as a result of you changing the color, or it could be a huge consequence where a player might not be able to play your game because they're red-green colorblind, and they aren't able to distinguish your character from the background, for example. Those are the kinds of things you have to pay attention to. And every decision you make has a cost that you have to keep in mind. So, like, if you decide to make your character red, you have to make sure that you have to consider that some people might not be able to see what they're doing on the screen, and you have to keep that in mind and think, well, maybe it's worth it because I really need this character to be red. I don't know. So like player approachability, or like making sure that expert players have something to do or have enough depth in the game in order to be involved and engaged in the game, things like that. Those are important. But it's also, you shouldn't think about it too hard because I mean, it's stressful, but it's not everything you decide to do in your game is going to cause failures, cause the worst. Your game will be okay, guys. It'll be fine.
Fun decisions.
Yes, fun decisions. But also, it's important not to think about it too hard because over-designing is bad. And what over-designing is putting in too many rules or mechanics into a thing to make it work for what you're trying to do. So, I don't know if I can come up with a good example.
Well, in Fingens, for a long time, you had an energy meter and a cooldown.
We did.
And you recently changed that.
We did. I wouldn't really call that an example of over-designing, but you're right. Both energy and cooldown served similar purposes, and as a result, we decided that we didn't need the energy costs.
They were, in fact, balanced between each other.
Right.
It was complicated.
Yeah, it was more complicated than I suppose it needed to. Dang it, it is over-designing. Darn you, Mark.
I've been having this conversation with him for a while, so
it's true.
But I mean, you made the change, and and it's great. It's good.
Yeah, yeah. So those are the kinds of things you need to be wary of.
It reminds me of that one episode of Magic School Bus where Carlos is making trying to make a new instrument, and he just keeps adding on more and more pieces of stuff, and it keeps sounding worse and worse and worse, and he doesn't know what to do. And finally, at the end, he's like, all of this stuff is preventing it from doing the thing it's supposed to do, which is vibrate and make sounds. So he throws everything off and it's just down to the base thing, and it sounds great. And
that's great.
Everyone wins.
That really does sound like a game design process.
It totally does. That's a wonderful example. Love that.
Miss Frizzle, secret game dev.
Another way to prevent yourself from thinking about your decisions too hard is to just make an arbitrary decision. So maybe you're trying to figure out how much health this enemy should have. Oh, did you have?
But I thought there were no arbitrary decisions, Stephen.
Well,
sorry.
It's a trap he laid in his presentation for you.
If you're making an arbitrary decision, you're trying to figure something out more about your game. That's why you would make an arbitrary you're trying to make an enemy and you want to figure out how difficult this enemy should be to kill, or whatever. If you could put just 100 health and see how much health, how long it takes players to kill them, or whatever you have to do. If it takes them forever to deal with this enemy, then you might go, oh shoot, maybe I put too much health in there, and you might cut it in half and put it at 50, and then that might just be enough. So it'll give you a better idea of what you want and what you're trying to go for.
To work your way towards a directed decision, you need to make a couple of arbitrary ones to sort of feel out the possibility space, right?
Like trial by error.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. It's actually a strategy in Sudoku, which is interesting, but I guess that's part of where they came from. Another strategy is to just work on something else for a moment, because like you might be sitting there and thinking about it for hours on end, and I've done this.
I do that a lot.
Oh yeah, and so it might just help to move on to something different. So like maybe you need to draw. Maybe you've been trying to draw this character for forever and a day, and you're just not getting anywhere. Maybe if you go and work on programming the AI of the enemy, you might have a better idea of what you want. Or something like that. And also, it's good to play other games because, we're also game devs. We hopefully enjoy playing games as much as we do making them. Well, maybe not as much, but it's helpful and inspiring to play other games. Like sometimes I've gotten inspired from other games, like with bullet patterns and things. It's helpful to see other people's bullet patterns and work with that. And also, I have a whole slide dedicated to this, so you know it's important. Play testing, guys. Play test early, play test often.
It'd be like the tagline of our show.
Yeah, I've not heard that before, Stephen.
What?
How important is that?
Extremely important.
I hear it doesn't matter at all.
Oh my goodness. Get out. It's extremely important, guys. You never know if a decision will work until you do it. So you never know if your game will even be fun until you play test it. And I think people during the workshop, they figured that out pretty quick. They had a better idea of how important it is to play test. But strategies to play testing, and I think we've covered this in the show in the past, but just make sure you know that you are the worst play tester for your own game because you know how it functions. You know all of the little intricacies of the game, and other people don't, especially when they're first trying it out. So it's important to make sure that you have other people play it. Maybe friends and family, preferably those strangers are the best because they will probably be filtered because they're nice, especially here in Minnesota and in the clubhouse. But they won't have any biases towards the game. So that's something to keep in mind. Hopefully you can get some strangers to play, maybe bring it up to a play testing event, or maybe just bring it to a coffee shop or something. I don't know. And just go, hey, are you busy? You want to play a game? I don't know.
So scary.
One of the things we do is, we play test among each other, and that seems like it should be the opposite of what your advice is. But I think it works because we have a level of trust.
Right.
So we're able to be critical and without ruining our friendships.
Yeah, and when I get a whole bunch of friends and people to play, I'm looking for a focus testing thing.
Yeah.
So people going at the game for a few hours. When you're play testing it, you just want people to play it for maybe 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Not a huge time. Not a huge time, because you got to keep in mind that they have lives too, and they don't want to spend all day playing the game unless you ask them to. But make sure you iterate off of that feedback. You take that feedback in, and you try to benefit your game from that feedback the best you can. So if someone's having a very difficult time getting through this level, you might go, oh man, maybe this level's a little hard. And you might adjust numbers to make it easier for them. But make sure that just because somebody gives you feedback doesn't mean that it is the end all be all. Like if you're playing a platformer and someone's like, I really like point and click games. I wish this was a point and click game. You probably shouldn't change your game to be a point and click game because, aside from point and clicks not being that fun.
Hey, whoa.
I'm kidding, sort of.
About to get not nice up in here.
Point and clicks are completely different genres, so you don't want to change your game for that. Just make sure to keep that in mind. And I know it's difficult to open yourself up to criticism, but it's important that you do it because you want your game to be as good as it can possibly be, and you can't do that until other people play it. And I would assume that, I suppose every game is different, so maybe you're making a game for yourself, but most of the time you're making a game for other people to enjoy. And so you want to make sure that other people actually do enjoy it. Yeah. And then this was the part when I'm like, hey, let's try it, guys. And then everybody broke up in teams of 4.
Well, maybe you can describe.
Yeah, so people at home, if you've got, most people are listening on commutes and stuff, but if you got an hour, whatever.
Yeah.
Here's a great activity to try.
Yeah.
That is a good point. Okay, so ideally you would be in a team because it's difficult to. It's not that difficult to prototype on your own, but it's helpful to just have somebody to bounce ideas around. So I suggested people have teams of 4. and I had a whole bunch of materials.
They should get some friends, do this activity, and then you could also introduce them to this program.
Yes. I love it. So I had the materials I had on the table for people to play test with. I had note cards. I had Post-it notes. I had Starburst, which I should have warned people about initially because there were some people eating the Starburst when they first went into the top. And it was, they were supposed to use them for pieces. I would suggest maybe using actual pieces. But I mean, if you want,
wasn't that Ava's idea?
It was Ava's idea.
It's a good idea, though, right?
It was,
people did appreciate it.
Yeah, and it was nice because there's like no cleanup. You just eat the pieces and move on.
Well, you left some behind for the next workshop to eat.
Yeah, it worked out really well. But yeah, that's all you really need to do. So you just have your team of 4 or whoever. Maybe you're by yourself, and then you have those materials I described, those and pencils and things to write with. And then I gave everybody on the thing a theme, and that theme was emotion. So I wanted people in each team to come up with an emotion, and it was a pretty wide range of emotions. There was like jealousy and fear of death, and a whole bunch of different things like that. Mm-hmm. I'm surprised nobody picked like happiness or joy. That was just boring. I guess.
Newt 1 has got that one covered.
That's true.
So Stephen, why would people want to start with an emotion and not a mechanic?
Because starting with a mechanic, like with games, when you're coming up with a game, it's not so much important how the mechanics work exactly. You want people to feel a particular thing because you want people to enjoy the game. And if you base your game around a mechanic, like if you, for example, say I'm going to make the best jumping platformer in the world, it's very difficult to make design decisions based off of that. But really the emotion behind that is like, I want to be the best acrobat in the world, right?
Yeah.
Like if you were trying to make a game like that, instead of trying to make your game feel as the best as it can by jumping, think of it in terms of making the player be the best acrobat and feel like the best acrobat while they're playing the game. And that will help your design decisions moving forward, as opposed to like basing just basing your game off of a mechanic, because it's really easy to just add mechanics on top of that to build that mechanic up, as opposed to like adding mechanics to build an emotion up, because it's really difficult to determine whether or not this mechanic is helping this other mechanic unless you have a base thing to feel from it.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, I resonate so much with that idea because of how important I feel. I want like games to be art.
Yeah.
And you as a real like mechanics design guy, the fact that that is equally true from that perspective is really cool. And people in that room, in that workshop, like that was their aha moment when they understood that.
Yeah. Yeah, it went really well. Mm-hmm. I was very pleased with it.
Hopefully it goes well for you at home as well.
Yeah,
Yeah. Send us your games.
Yes, send us your games. If you do this at home, tweet at us at Nice Games Club or get us hold of us any other way.
Yeah, contact@nicegames.club is our email. You can tweet at us, of course.
Yeah.
And you could comment on the Reddit post for this episode. Or just, you don't have to send it to us, but you should be sharing it anyway.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's part of your doctrine is to share it, play test it. But we want to hear, because I think Stephen's workshop was a big success, and the only shame of it was that not more people could have participated.
Yeah.
So let's make that you.
Yeah. But yeah, that's my talk. It's fun.
Yeah. I wish I was sort of a TA for you, and I was very happy to do that, but I do wish I could have participated.
Yeah.
Because people really loved it.
Yeah, I have a better idea of what I need for the next time I do this. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
More to come. Right?
Oh, yeah.
You'll be doing this session. You'll be doing this
definitely
again,
doing it again, for sure. So I think we have a third topic.
We do have a third topic. And unlike our fun last two topics, which were special and about GlitchCon, this one's like kind of dry and kind of boring and kind of regular, but I'm kind of invested in it, which is multitasking. So I think there's this sort of multitasking has an interesting history. I think in the 90s and the early 2000s, when multitasking became more than just like parallel processing on a CPU, and it became something that humans were said to be able to do with the advent of more digital technology. I think it was this idea of like multitasking is this amazing thing that you need to be good at to survive in the modern world.
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of like a trend or a fad or a kind of a pop psychology, right? And then more recently, because it's now been studied in how people do or task switching more specifically, the consensus has arrived basically to say that it's basically incredibly inefficient. That people who the example they always use is like information workers, people who answer emails, have meetings, do reports, or whatever. And if all of that is happening at once, and the fact that we always have access to work emails and even like social calendars and stuff that just sort of ping us all the time.
Yeah.
All that task switching can really slow us down. It can stress us out. And I kind of want to talk about it from a game dev perspective, because I know for myself, because I'm a one-man dev, I do a lot of different things for my game, and I kind of do them all at once in a certain way.
Yeah.
So I feel kind of like I am a practiced multitasker, but every time I read about this and like how bad it is, I kind of like, I comport a little bit with that. I'm like, oh, I get it. I kind of get it. But I'm curious to sort of explore examples of how, where we think it's helped us or hurt us in a way. But I think one of the things that interests me when I was researching this today, I was multitasking at work today and doing some research on this. But that task switching, the reason that it's sort of natural for people is because it releases endorphins, because we like learning, like humans, even the dummies among you, like to learn things. It's a rush. So task switching back and forth between things, because you have to like organize your time and like decide what to do next. It is, you actually are learning, not just about the things you're doing, but about the process of doing it.
Okay.
And so it becomes very attractive to do it. It also puts your mind in that mode, which can make it very effective to do smaller tasks. So it actually can have a benefit. The downside, of course, is that it is woefully inefficient in terms of time, because there's so much overhead in how you're thinking about tasks, but also that it releases stress hormones. And so that's why when people talk about how busy they are, and like you kind of like, yeah, okay, I thanks for telling me. Like the reason people say it is because it like they feel busier than they are in a lot of cases.
Interesting.
Yeah. But I want to talk about like the necessity of multitasking for game dev workflows. So Stephen, your example, actually, you had an example inadvertently when you're talking about getting stuck, right? Let's say you're drawing a character, and then you want to then move on to designing the AI for that character, which might give you some insight on how the character would look.
Yeah.
Those kinds of tandem tasks, but you require a bunch of different skills. That, to me, I see that's an example where I'm like, there is no argument you can make to me that is not an efficient process.
I agree,
right?
But I wouldn't call that multitasking exactly. I guess when I explained the example, I was thinking you were spending 3 or 4 hours working on the character design of this dude, and it just wasn't working out, and so you spend another 2 or 3 hours working on the AI.
Oh, I see what you mean. But that's another sort of thing I wanted to talk about, which is like how we define it, right?
Yeah.
So if multitasking between unrelated activities is something that is sort of science has studied, it's really interesting that we'll put some links in the show notes. The actual sort of like way they test for this is really compelling and interesting. But a lot of times they try to have these different tasks that activate different parts of your brain, and that do not sort of correlate. And,
I got you.
But when I think about multitasking, I think about doing multiple tasks in service of a larger task.
Oh.
And so, like, think about like painting a house, right? You need to balance on a ladder, and you need to like decide where to paint next. Like these are all things that don't actually have anything to do with each other, but you have to do them at the same time.
Yeah.
But we don't call that multitasking. We call that painting a house.
Right.
And so I am really fascinated where you draw that line, and when is multitasking a skill? And when is it a hindrance? And no matter how good at it, when is it a bad workflow? And when is it a skill that will improve what you're doing?
Okay.
I'm really fascinated by that, because I think that the criticisms of it tend to have these really broad definitions of what a task is.
Yeah.
And then they have this sort of narrow view of the sort of lists of example tasks that would fall in this category. I mean, look, if you're watching TV and reading a comic book at the same time, you're not going to get the most from either. Yeah. But that's fun. That seems totally logical to me. But I don't know that that's the same as like your example, because I've done that. I've worked on the art and animation for a character of mine, and then decided that the jump should work differently, and then modified a little bit of code, and then came back like within the same 10-minute span to adjust. And those are different skills, but they're in the service of something larger. So that's my defense of multitasking, I guess. But it's fair. I mean, it's incredibly biased and very like of my own experience. So I want to hear from you guys. Yeah. Like what Is it something you avoid? Is it something you feel that you get trapped in? What are some examples of sort of multitasking in your work?
Well, I was thinking of when you were talking about drawing a character. There's a lot of advice for art to like when you're drawing something to be at the same stage for each piece of it, and that's like advice in order to keep things like proportional and stuff, because you'll start working like if you just work on someone's face and then like get it so detailed and then start working on the rest of the person,
right,
you can get like off on that stuff. And so like so like the suggestion would be to like make everything sketchy at once, all where it needs to be, and then start filling things in and move from place to place, and making it more and more detailed that way. So I was thinking about that, and like, would making a game like that work, or would it just be
that? Yeah, because I was going to say that doesn't seem like a good way to make a game, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because it's important you have the core feedback loop in your game so that people can experience that, and you can experience that, and you know whether you need to be able to iterate off of that. And I suppose like art and story, all of that also needs to be iterated on, but those could come separately. I feel like you would want to do those in chunks. Like you would want to work on the art of the thing and make sure that whole thing is at the same quality level for the most part in your game. But you wouldn't necessarily need your gameplay to be at that same level. It could be a higher or lower level. I don't know.
But they do need to move together to some extent, right? I mean, we've actually brought this up on our show before, about like developer art and agile as a process, where you kind of want to have. I mean, you don't want to have like you don't want step one of every little thing all there, right? But you want what you don't want to leave anything out. As you move forward.
You're right.
Right.
I agree with that. I guess I just wouldn't necessarily say that you need to have your game mechanics to be as at the same level as your art. Like,
sure, of course.
Your art doesn't have to be finalized if your game mechanics are.
It's a totally different medium, but that was just what I thought when you were saying.
But I think it's very applicable because you think of like you want to draw a still of a ballerina in motion, and so you think, okay, well, I need to do like a weight distribution, so you're going to just do the stick figure sort of it to say, okay, and then it's weighted this way. Okay, well, that's going to matter how its leg is twisted, so I'll work on the leg for a little while, and then I don't need to worry about the shoulder. But so you have the sort of broad outlines, but you then do, like you're saying, Stephen, different levels depending on the needs of each of the little tasks in the larger task.
Okay.
So I mean, it kind of rolls into my defense of it. Is that that holistic approach that is important to the way I work? Sometimes I feel it's harder to defend because it just sounds like multitasking, which science shows it leads to distractions and low efficiency. So. So I don't know.
That's interesting.
It's sort of competing thoughts in my own mind about it.
Yeah, it's like what part, because you're working on one thing technically. It's your game you're working on. But when do you draw that line of like, now I'm working on something completely different, and is it taking away from me getting the script done or something?
Right. The example I have this last 2 weeks is preparing for GlitchCon. I was working on cutscenes for my game. I had both of you test it out for me, which I appreciate very much, by the way.
It's really great.
Thank you. But there were two parts to it. There was building a framework, a super class for a cutscene, which was going to help me going forward, so I can write cutscene child classes and yada yada. But also, I needed to do some script writing, which is the first of the fiction that a lot of people will ever see in my game, because it's been mostly just the arcade modes this whole time.
Yeah.
And I really had to do those together. Like I couldn't. And when I found that the more I would get into the writing, the worse it got. I had to step back and switch gears to think about, okay, how much goes into each box? How many boxes? I need to test it. I need to iterate. And so, and those are definitely different tasks. And I actually I kept telling myself, listen, this is getting inefficient. I wasn't thinking about it in terms of this topic yet. I just only today thought of how applicable it was. I was thinking, okay, this is getting I'm setting aside the code for now. I'm just going to write this scene. And I know I've been playing with it enough. I know how much text will fit in a box. I know roughly the plot arc. I know all that. And I wrote the whole thing out, and then I brought it in, and I started changing it immediately because of what I was experiencing and how I was implementing it. And in the end, I just wrote it in the code editor. Because that was just the fastest way to do it, while I was also deciding its functionality. And I don't know. I feel like that's a pretty good defense of that process. But again, I don't know. It might just be the way I got through it this week. you know?
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah. I guess I don't know if I approach things like that. That seems well, I don't know. Specifically with Vengeance, I do some of the code, but not a lot of it, and so I mainly focus on the game design.
Yeah.
And so I have the ability to just focus on one thing and not have to multitask. But like for example with Vengeance, when I'm working on an enemy, I also have to adjust like say the chunks because the game has randomly generated levels and each level is made of a certain amount of chunks. And so when I'm making a change to an enemy, you also have to make a change to the chunk to reinforce that. Right. But I wouldn't consider that. I guess I would just consider that working on that level.
Yeah, well, it's where you draw that line, right?
Yeah,
I think I don't think that's very fuzzy. I think you're right. That is part of one task, basically.
Yeah, but I mean, when I'm doing that, I have to adjust. Sometimes I have to adjust animations because I'm deciding to make this attack slower, and so I have to like edit the animation or maybe change it completely because it doesn't work anymore, and so I have to do that kind of thing. And then in addition, I have to change the numbers of that enemy to make sure that that enemy is balanced and isn't like too hard for players to take down, but also isn't too easy for players to take down, so they're not a challenge. And you have to make sure that the scrap is, or you give people enough reward for taking down this enemy and things like that. Those are all different tasks, but those are related to the same main task.
Yeah,
and like you said, it's I guess it's just how you break it down.
Right.
I wouldn't really consider that multitasking. I would consider working on Vengeance to be a task.
Right. And I don't mean to challenge that at all,
no.
or to say like nothing is true.
Right.
But I think that just framing it in those terms, I think tells me that there is a line, and a lot of times it's very clear cut. But I think that people tend to think that there's that what a task is has a definition when they think about these things. But I think there are many examples where it's fuzzier than you imagine.
Yeah.
And it does, like when you're saying like you don't really work the way that I described myself working, which that tracks with sort of the other thought I had, which is in some of the resources I was looking at was saying that people who are multitaskers, according to the definitions that the studies provide, they tend to be people who are susceptible to distractions, and that's what leads to a multitasking behavior, right?
I am definitely susceptible to distractions. I mean, I have a lot of jobs.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I'm working on them all at the same time, and so I'll have like 8 different tabs open, which apparently isn't a lot of tabs. You and your 30 tab selves.
Hey, don't look at me. I just make bookmarks and never go back to them.
There you go. That's how you do it. This 30 tabs mess.
Right.
But anyways, I'll have 8 tabs and I'll be slipping between the 2 or the 3 and go, I'll edit this calendar. Oh, I better make a tweet for this. Oh, I better blah blah blah. And so I'll be flipping between them, and within 5 minutes I'll have flipped between them like 30 times, and so I get lost as to what I'm supposed to be doing.
Right.
That feels like multitasking, and in those instances I'm confused and I feel like I'm not getting what I need to get done. And so I'll recognize that and go, I'm going to get one thing done and focus on that one task. So I'll get that task done and then move on to the next.
Yes. For sure.
So that's...
Well, I think that's because that suits the way you work. Right. And I think one of the one of the articles I was looking at saying that like science suggests that like the solution is not to prevent yourself from being distracted, but distract yourself with the right things at the right time. So kind of how we were talking about like with the art example, or like having different levels of areas of your game moving forward at different paces. Like it's all contextual. It's like move to something else when it needs to be moved to, I guess.
Yeah.
I think people like multitasking itself is just like random tasks, but that's not really how it works, I don't think. But the example about like that people who are studied as multitaskers are sort of proven those people will be more distracted. But I think, well, I multitask all the time, but I also have an addictive personality. Like I will do the same thing for 12 hours. Like I will stay up as long as possible, and I will also sleep as long as possible. Like you've played games with me, and you've hung out with me in the evenings.
Oh yeah.
Like I'm perfectly happy to go forever on whatever I'm doing at the moment. But I also feel like I switch tasks all the time. So maybe they just cancel each other out. Like I had something about like a crisis of identity today. Like, wait, am I a multitasker or am I? Do I have an addictive personality? Can I have both? Like, I don't know.
If my dad were here, he'd say that there's no multitasking. It doesn't exist.
Right. It's task switching. Right.
Right.
Right. We can't we don't have 2 cores. Like, actually.
Like,
do that.
if you're watching TV and reading a comic on your phone or whatever, you're really just doing one or the other at any given time.
Yeah.
At least that's what my dad says. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think you can still watch TV and get something out of it and read your comic or whatever at the same time.
I find myself listening to a podcast and reading an article without realizing it, and then I'm like, wait a minute, which one am I not paying attention to? And I'm like, no, I think I got both of them, sort of. You know what I mean? You definitely don't give it your full attention to those things. It's not ideal.
Yeah, like when I'm at work, I feel like I need something else while I'm doing work. So I often have podcasts on while I'm, and I find that when it's like super intense, when I have to figure something out, I can't listen to a thing. But if I'm doing a task that like I know what I'm doing and I just have to write the stuff, then like it's perfect. And I need that because otherwise I get super bored and then I'll go on and be totally distracted.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. You have too many cycles going to waste when you're just doing one of those things.
Yeah.
So you do let the spare ones off to pay attention to something else.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny you're describing like when you really got to focus, then you turn that off. That's the common example people say is when you're driving somewhere and you need to when you're getting close to where you need to check the addresses on buildings, you turn the radio down. Just instinctually you do that. It's like that's like the same attitude, right?
Oh yeah.
So it's all contextual, you know?
Yeah, it's like if something needs too much of your brain to do, like if you can make something go on autopilot, then you actually can do two things at once, listen to something and make something.
Right.
Like I love to do like draw or something while listening to something too.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really interesting
it's like
to think about.
It's pairing tasks together. I think you can be good at it. There's just the things that are good for it.
Right. Yeah. It's like totally contextual.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm really curious with the point and click game you're going to be working on, Martha, because that's going to require different disciplines, like really working together, even more than just like writing a dialogue for a cutscene. And so I'm curious to revisit this with you as you get into that.
Yeah. I've been doing a lot of thinking about it.
Yeah.
Like on the bus, and I've got some design things drawn out and stuff. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what my thoughts are on it, having my own actual project just for me.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for the discussion on that. I feel like sometimes I feel alone about that because I read all these articles and I put a lot of faith in them. I don't dismiss them.
Yeah.
But I have to comport it with my own reality.
Right.
I think this I'm glad I got a little more context.
Yeah. It was an interesting discussion because I guess I hadn't considered it, but in some cases I do multitask, and I guess when I am multitasking in general, it's hard for me to focus on each task. So it doesn't benefit me at all, but it may benefit some, and it seems like it benefits you two quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. It might also just be a wonderful lie.
Hooray!
We've been lying to ourselves.
All right, guys, that's our show. Our first after GlitchCon. It was invigorating.
Oh, yeah.
What'd you say?
Woo woo.
As you said, it's nice to be back in the clubhouse.
Yes. Still need a few hours more rest, though.
Yeah.
maybe a few dozens of hours more rest.
Yeah.
Hey, if you haven't already, subscribe to Nice Games Club in your favorite podcast app, and be sure to give it a good review if you liked it or are nice like us. We super need to know you're all out there, so leave a review and tell all your friends too. And hey, find us on Reddit at our Game Dev. We're going to be posting our show notes there. So if you want to talk about any of the topics you heard in the show today or in past shows, check it out. We'll have the links in the show notes. We also want to hear directly from you, so follow us on Twitter and all the other things at Nice Games Club. Let us know how we're doing, send us your topics, and ask us your questions. And Stephen, they should really be filling out that feedback form too, right?
nicegames.club/feedback.
Yeah, tell us what we're doing wrong. Tell us what you like about the show. Tell us what types of shows you like.
Yeah.
And just give us your notes. It's the feedback we've gotten from there has been really valuable. Mm-hmm. And so that's why we beg you each week, because everyone who fills it out is amazing. And so be amazing and fill out that form. Yeah. nicegames.club/feedback. Lastly, you can find out more about the show and your nice host, as well as get all the links and notes from this and other episodes at nicegames.club. So until we start again, remember to
play nice
and make nice. I just killed the vibe.
Jeez, Martha. Well, now you have to do the transition to the next topic. That's your punishment.
Aw. Okay. Well, you just raised your hand.
I need to go to the bathroom.
Oh, okay.
All right,
and with that, folks.